So you're shopping for a home and looking for a mortgage. Here's the 5 things you need to think about when you're choosing your lender. Welcome back to another episode of Real Life at Level 10, where I discuss insights of real estate, leadership, and personal growth. My name's Matt Farnham. Before I get started with the 5 things you need to know to select a lender, please, if you have been watching this show, and we've been getting your feedback so we know you are, if you haven't subscribed yet, please take a minute to do so. It really will help us out a lot. So let's get right into the 5 things you need to know about selecting the right lender for you. And let me first say that there is no right lender out there. It's the one that's right for you based on these 5 things. So the first thing to consider is, of course, the interest rate. That's what everybody wants to ask is, what's the interest rate? So that one we can skip over real quick. The second one is, what are the fees? Essentially, what that really means is what do you pay to get the rate? And I just want to challenge you to think of something a different way. Is when you're comparing lenders, and it's not a bad idea to maybe interview a couple few, but when you're comparing lenders, keep in mind that all lenders have access to the same rate. It really comes down to, what do you pay for that rate? So if one lender says they're at a 3.5% rate, another one is at 3.25%, but their closing costs are higher or lower, have that second lender match that 3.25% rate and show you what it will cost you to get that rate with them. So you're truly at that point comparing equal rate and payment, but what do you have to pay in closing cost to get that rate? So the first 2, interest rate and fees, are kind of the obvious ones that you were probably already considering. The third thing to look at is the performance of the mortgage lender. What I mean by performance is a couple things. First of all, what does their underwriting process look like? Is it a big oiled machine in a completely different state that they ship off the underwriting to, and the communication is very difficult and you're waiting days upon days for updates? Or is it right down the hallway where the loan officer literally puts you on hold, walks to the underwriter and gets an answer and gets back to you? Again, completely different, and will probably be reflected in the fees that you pay for that type of performance and experience, but something to consider. The second thing when I talk about performance is, what are the timelines that specific mortgage broker, banker, whoever it is, lender has to have to perform. So for example, how many days do they need to get an appraisal back? How many days do they need to typically get full loan approval for your financing? And how many days do they need to close? The reason why these are so critical, especially in a competitive market like we're currently in Southern Nevada, I'm in the Las Vegas market, but when there's potential multiple offers on a home, the type of offer that you write with the amount of days that you're asking for these sort of contingencies can have a very big impact on the likelihood that your offer is selected against maybe a competing buyer. So what does their performance look like and their ability to do so within certain time frames? The fourth thing to consider is the reputation in the local market. Now, what I mean by this is I'm not going to point out any specific lenders for better or for worse, but when you are writing offers on homes and you're working with buyer's agents and listing agents, remember, life is about relationships and, of course, reputation. And there are certain lenders and banks and brokers in Vegas specifically, but all over the country, that are going to have a reputation for closing files on time, for having tighter time frames, for closing transactions that they actually pre-approve, versus those that are more known for having delay after delay, causing headaches for the seller, which absolutely could impact not only your experience, first and foremost, but also the likelihood that the seller wants to accept your offer based on the advice they might be getting from a listing agent because of the experience they've had in that local marketplace. And the fifth and final thing I want to tell you to consider is, what's their communication look like and the customer service? And ultimately, I don't want to say you get what you pay for, but that does seem to be proven true in a lot of cases. And in my experience, selling real estate in Las Vegas specifically for the last 16 years, that does prove to be true in most cases. And again, there's no right answer. Some people don't mind paying for service, where you have maybe more people to communicate with, easier to get a hold of, more timely return phone calls and emails, and that sort of thing. Some people care much more about the fees and what they're paying, and if that means that maybe the communication and service isn't quite as good, that's totally fine for you. And again, that might be right for you. There's no right answer there. So I hope this helps you understand some things to think about when you're selecting a lender. Interest rate and fees are absolutely super important, of course, but there's 3 other factors to consider, which would be the performance of the lender, timelines, underwriting, things like that, their reputation in a local market, and of course, what type of level of communication and service, ultimately client experience, do they provide for you and your family. All right, so that's it for this episode of Real Life at Level 10. Again, please subscribe or follow this content. Ask your questions. We would love to hear from you. And whatever it is that you're doing or walking through, do it at a level 10 and live with the results. This episode was filmed at our Team Farnham listing at 2816 Josephine in the guard gates of Club Madera in Henderson. For more information on this home or any of our Team Farnham listings, visit teamfarnham.com.